Hello ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to VUX World, the Practical Voice Podcast. Today we're speaking to Jon Chu of Jetson.ai. He's the COO of Jetson, and Jetson enables any brand to sell products via any conversational interface. So for example, you could order a coffee on the train via your voice on your phone and then pick the coffee up when you get off the train from the retailer. You could order a takeaway from Alexa while you're sitting at home watching Netflix, and then that takeaway will be dropped off at your door. A little bit like Deliveroo in the UK. I don't know what the US equivalent is or the European equivalent, but Deliveroo, essentially it's like a takeaway, online takeaway thing. You make your order, then it drops your stuff off. Essentially, Jetson is handling the whole end-to-end experience, from ordering to payments to delivering the food. But it's not just food, it's looking into retail and hospitality and all kinds of areas. We're speaking today to Jon all about conversational commerce, or vCommerce, as I'm still persisting with that term and trying to make it catch on. I think it will. So yeah, we're going to be talking to Jon all about vCommerce, all about the vCommerce industry, the state of play in the industry, and some of the stuff that he's learned through building out Jetson.ai. We're talking about the practicalities of voice commerce, we're talking about user behavioural trends, and we're talking about the industry. We're talking about how brands can get involved and start trading via these conversational interfaces. Such a smart guy, Jon. It was a really compelling conversation, and you're going to really, really enjoy it. It builds on some of the conversations that we had with Charlie Cadbury, actually, of Say It Now. That was a few weeks back, and this takes that story on to the next step. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, this is Jon Chu of Jetson.ai on VUX World. So Jon Chu, welcome to VUX World.
Great. Thanks for the invite. I'm really excited to talk a lot about Jetson at the VUX World.
No problem. Thank you for joining us. It is much appreciated. I've seen a lot of the stuff that you've been sort of doing on Instagram, and for everyone out there, I'd recommend following Jetson on Instagram, because it's you're quite active on there, and there's a lot of good content over there. So yeah, you kind of piqued my interest on Instagram, and it looks like a really good platform. So why don't you, Jon, tell the VUX World listeners first of all a little bit about yourself, and then we can get into a little bit about Jetson.
Great. So yeah, I'm a former technology executive at a lot of leading companies, primarily in technology, banking, consultancy, and media. What I've been doing in the past 16 years is really loving to build products and services and different experiences, and really helping companies scale to where they need to be. So when I left my media job, I actually became an advisor to Jetson, but now I'm actually a full-time COO of Jetson.ai. Nice.
And tell us then a little bit about Jetson.ai. What's Jetson all about?
Yeah, so Jetson is a voice-first AI platform. We enable businesses to easily start selling products and services through multiple conversation interfaces. We really strive to make things easier for the brands to get into a voice experience world across different platforms.
And so is it primary then? It's primary a voice. Voice is the primary interface to Jetson. When you say different platforms, is it purely focusing on voice platforms?
Yeah, that's a good thing to start talking about. So we are very focused on voice-first design. We do work on mobile devices, whether it's applications, websites, but also we're able to carry on that conversation over to other platforms like Google Homes, Amazon Alexas, because we do feel like from an end user's perspective that there should be a ubiquitous kind of voice experience for conversational commerce.
So tell us a little bit about what the user journey looks like in terms of if someone was to be using Jetson. Is it something that you can actually transact through? Right.
So for Jetson, we're we have multiple platforms, as I mentioned. So we really focus on the food, retail, and hospitality industries. For Jetson right now, we have an app available in the Americas where we're really doing voice commerce through voice ordering and through food ordering. And we can actually go through that end user journey where you can pick up a mobile device and order food, any types of food from our selected restaurants. And we will actually deliver those food to you in US dollars. So to give you a really good, quick examples, you can actually go into a specific voice enabled restaurant. So a lot of our partners like Shake Shack, Bear Burger, you can say, I would like to order a burger from Bear Burger, and our technology actually will have deductive reasoning and will ask, what type of burger would you like? A bison burger or a beef burger? Would you like lettuce, tomatoes, and ketchup? It boils down to the conversations where we take that element out from an intent perspective and place it into a shopping cart, so to say, so that you can transact with your voice.
Okay, so you're handling the whole journey then from kind of like the query initially in terms of I want to order a burger, presumably right the way through to payments. And if you're going to deliver something, I'm assuming you're handling payments and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we do voice payments, we actually use our voice to authenticate. But going back to that end-to-end journey, we're really focused on delivering the best frictionless voice experience through commerce. So that's why we added delivery to the end of it, because we really wanted to make sure that when the user picks up a device of their choice, they can carry on that voice transaction and then have that food delivered to you in an affordable rate. So that whole full end-to-end journey is really important for us. Really important for us also to explain to the brands, right, to increase that brand awareness for any restaurant, for any retail store to kind of focus on.
And when a customer is ordering a burger, are they ordering it through Jetson, or are they ordering it through the restaurant, but it's Jetson's technology? So our technology is actually has two folds. So when you order the food, it's actually ordering through Jetson. So through our Jetson app, that order will be transacted through the restaurant. Someone will go to that restaurant to pick up and deliver to you. However, our technology is also very scalable, where we can actually white label and license that technology to a store. So if a branded store would like to have Jetson technology white label on their application, we can also do that as well. Okay, that's interesting. And because the delivery thing you started, that's a relatively recently thing, isn't it? How's that sort of going then so far?
Yeah, that's been going quite well. So we have an influx of users. They're all very, they're all very surprised about how easy the experience is, because sometimes when you do speak on a mobile phone or a speaker, it doesn't come off as natural, like maybe the first time around. But once they actually complete the transaction, we see a lot of influx of repeated users, because they say that voice is in fact 3 times faster than typing on a keyboard, or going into a mobile website. Because when you say I want a bison burger with a side of pickles and cheese, but pepper jack cheese and not American cheese, it understands that. Rather than when you fingers the keyboard, you're gonna have to log in, you're gonna have to find the restaurant and find a burger. So they see that as a real big value of doing that full-on transaction. And they, our really mantra and vision in Jetson is really making a frictionless society through voice, so that we can give time back to the user itself, so they can take that time to be with your families or be with others and do more meaningful things in this world.
So you mentioned there that the first time people use it, that there is, I can't remember the exact phrase that you used, but you said that as soon as they get to the end of the experience, they really enjoy it. But the very first time they use it, what do they find it difficult or a bit perplexing because it's a new kind of modality? What did you mean by the sort of the first kind of time people use it?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times when we design this voice first design, we're very focused on having that natural conversation. So when they do pick up the phone, it's in terms of like pressing on the, we have a specific sphere in our, you'll see the dialogue, but you press on a sphere or a globe, and you can start talking to it and say, I would like to order from Shake Shack. I would like to order from Bear Burger. And then it just works, right? So there's a little bit of a taken back as human beings who are like, wow, this voice technology actually works and actually can carry through. And then that's like the kind of hesitation is like, okay, I see how the dialogue works and I see how the customer can get through this. And that's when we design this dialogue, we're very focused on kind of understanding for a person to go into a restaurant and ordering, by looking at the menu, talking to a cashier. We're trying to also improve on that experience as well. How do we get to the order quicker? Are there different things that we can make the conversation more flexible to get to the transaction earlier?
That's interesting. We were speaking to Paul Jackson of the BBC recently, and he was talking about doing kind of user research into, because they've created a CBeebies skill, and it's kind of like you're going to have interactive stories and games and read stories and stuff. And what he was saying is that through the research, they found that there were situations in the household, like, for example, story time with the baby, where the parent would just give the kid two options in terms of the books that they want to read. So rather than saying, there's your whole bookshelf, pick a story, it was like, well, here's two stories, which one do you want? So they took that concept and put that into the skill. So they've almost kind of like taken the realistic environment and then created that environment within the voice experience. You were saying there around trying to work out whether you can improve on the actual in-person experience. What kind of stuff did you learn and what kind of things did you input into this experience that makes it better than the in-store experience? Did you do any of that where you take the in-store experience and almost replicate it, or were you looking to advance on it every time?
We're looking to advance to it, but we've actually looked, a lot of our research is through our UX designer as well. We've also visited a lot of retail stores to understand, when you go into a store and you specifically purchase a product, what happens today in a lot of these retail stores is you go in, you're looking for a blue shirt, and you have no idea where that blue shirt is. And then you have to find a specific store clerk to guide you there, right? Mm-hmm. So some of these type of experiences we're looking to see from a human's perspective of how people shop or how people order food. And then we kind of go back into our dialogue engine and we look at, what can we edit and what can we kind of make more optimized in terms of that dialogue to help that person complete that transaction.
Mm. Do you find from the things that you've learned so far, I'm imagining that, if you're working with a specific restaurant, then you can cover their whole product inventory potentially. It sounds as though the technology you've got behind the scenes is sophisticated enough to be able to kind of match the request with the various elements of that kind of inventory. Do you find that people, when they're using it, understand quite how kind of flexible it is? So for example, I want a so-and-so burger with such and such cheese and not any of that sauce or whatever. Do people understand that they know that they can use that much capability, or do they keep their interactions more narrow?
Yeah, so I think there's a good segue to talk a little bit about how a brand can actually onboard and get a voice experience. So over the last 6 months, we've been really clearing hurdles in terms of making this more of an automated experience for both a business, but also for the consumer. So from the business perspective, you can actually import a food menu and we will automatically create that voice dialogue for you. And in terms of curating, really closely make sure that their brand is kept in from whether it's McDonald's and Burger King and so forth. Everyone has a different way of ordering depending on the brand itself. So when a user, from a user's perspective, and they pick up I would like to order from McDonald's, there's a specific way of ordering from McDonald's that is very natural to the user. And what we've seen is when they order a Big Mac, it will actually say, would you like, would you like any options with that? And those options are sides. Would you like any sides with that? And the sides will be like, would you like fries? Would you like fries with ketchup? Would you like 6-piece chicken McNuggets and so forth? So it's very natural to the user, and we're really happy about, kind of where that dialogue is happening and how the user is adapting to the dialogue more and more each day as they use it.
That was interesting what you were just saying there around asking if they want any sides, and it got me thinking a little bit about whether or not voice commerce actually could do upselling better than the traditional kind of web, if you like. So, for example, if you were ordering a takeaway online, you would let's use that McDonald's example. I don't think they do online ordering, but let's just say, for instance, they did. You would go there, you would say, I want this burger, Big Mac burger or whatever, and then I want this side and this drink. And then as you go through the checkout process, as every e-commerce site does, there's little teasers, isn't there, throughout the checkout process. So do you want extra dips, or do you want to double up on these chips or whatever? So, but when you're going through that experience as a user, you know that they're trying to upsell you, and it's kind of like you're almost, in some ways, if you only go there for a specific purpose, in some ways, I don't know about you, but sometimes my kind of guard's up, and I'm like, I only came for this, and I only want that, so all of these additional things I'm not really interested in because I just want this, and you almost feel as though you're being sold to, whereas in that example you just gave there, it almost feels as though it's more of a natural conversation, so upselling or kind of like cross-selling might actually become something that is more natural. Would you say that, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but is that kind of, broadly speaking, do you reckon that's where the opportunity could be? That
is 100% kind of where we're thinking as well. If you think about the voice space, right, there are obviously, when we create voice first design, we always believe that the screen will be secondary in the future. So can we upsell, either via voice or screen as a second interface? But I think you bring kind of a good topic to talk about, right? I think in your past podcast, you were talking about voice SEO, right? Mm. So how can we upsell in a more natural way, right? If you think about going to an electric store today and you're buying a cell phone, right? A cell phone, a clerk will say, try to upsell you on the insurance and the warranty and stuff like that. It's still kind of natural, right? We can potentially do that as well as a recommendation. Imagine if you're going to Jetson and you're saying, I want to go, I would like to buy some Levi's. And it will say, what size are you? What type of boot cut? Do you want blue jeans or gray jeans? But by the way, these jeans really look good with this shirt as well, right? Mm-hmm. Soft upselling, but it's so natural to the experience. And that's what we've built our engine to be, so that we can go to these brands and we can work with these brands to kind of get their brand awareness in a more natural way, rather than your typical Amazon e-commerce store where you will show recommendations and you're just hoping that user will click on, right? It's a soft sell. It's part of the conversation. It's very easy to get away from that recommendation if you don't like it, but it's also much easier to add that recommendation via voice if you want to.
It'd be interesting to do some comparisons, actually, given that the voice commerce sort of space is kind of blossoming, or just about to blossom, I suppose, and we can get into maybe the broader voice commerce kind of state of play, if you like, in a moment. But it'd be interesting to do a kind of comparison versus, one website. Let's take, I don't know, something like Domino's, the Domino's website, and tracking the upsells of kind of other products during the checkout process versus what the conversion rate on those upsells would be in a voice sort of arena. Because it does, as you were saying, it does feel a lot more natural and a lot less pushy, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Domino's is actually a really good example. Jetson had was very fortunate to kind of demonstrate this to Domino's as well. And, currently, if you look at the Domino's skill, you can actually just reorder. right?
Yeah.
And you can't actually build a piece from start to finish. But imagine if you're, if there's a big sporting event, Domino's makes tons of money during sporting events like the Super Bowl. Imagine if Jetson, you will be able to not only ask, how do you build a specific product, but you can upsell and say, hey, is this for a large gathering? Because it looks like one person is not eating 3 pies. and would you like to add some chicken wings or sodas of that matter, right? So that kind of stuff is really interesting, where we're going to start heading into the voice commerce world, because Jetson, we really see voice commerce as being twofold. As one being a kind of a call to action to do certain things, but also the other thing is obviously transactional. How do we use voice to monetize on the customer upselling piece of it, but in a more natural way?
There's an interesting kind of paradigm, I think, with voice commerce, whereby, and I've noticed this since sort of like over the last probably 10 years, since kind of like card payments became more the thing. And in fact, people very rarely have, I don't know what it's like in the US, but certainly in the UK, people rarely have cash on them anymore now. Everything's either you're paying on your phone or you're paying with your card, and it's reduced friction almost entirely, really, because I pay my watch for most stuff. I've got it on my wrist. I don't need to do anything other than click the side button 3 times. But it almost feels as though, because there's less friction in the physical world in shops, it's a lot easier to sort of spend and not really keep on top of what you're spending. Whereas online, when you're adding stuff to your basket, there's a total in the bottom corner, and it's always growing and growing and growing, and you're seeing this thing and you're looking at all the items in your list, and there's a constant reminder of how much you're spending. Whereas in that example you gave there's a group of people, the Super Bowl's on or the football's on or whatever, you're ordering a pizza through your voice. You don't see necessarily, unless you're using a screen as well, but in a voice only world, you don't see that tally racking up. So, and it's a lot. I don't know whether you found this, but is there more scope for people to make more impulsive purchases, do you think, because of that?
I think it's, I personally feel that, voice commerce is really reinventing the way people are shopping, but it's almost like a revisit in history of how e-commerce started, right? When first e-commerce started, it was almost like those infomercials where you call in and, so if I look at a history, right, back in the day when people pick up the phone to call us, specific QVC or whatnot to buy things, it was very impulsive. So you have a lot of people buying racks of hundreds of dollars of items, and then you had e-commerce where you had totals and stuff like that. But voice is becoming more natural, where you're going to have to say things that you're going to buy, and it's going to trigger elements in your mind where, maybe I shouldn't buy, that 10-gallon of mayonnaise. I don't really need it. Maybe I'll have the 2-ounce mayonnaise for a single person. So certain things and elements of triggering human behavior and human habits of shopping is going to be very critical, and it's a very different mindset when you use voice to shop.
It's almost as if you can kind of, because it's so, if it's done right, it can be so frictionless. I don't know if it's just me, but I can certainly see that you would be it's quite easy to have made a purchase and be over and done with before you've even realized. I'll give you an example. We bought, I've been testing voice shopping out over the last kind of few weeks, and the most recent thing I bought was a kind of, it's like a fake deer antler for the dog. It's just basically like a replica of an antler, and he can just chew it, and he kind of just chews it and he's fine. And I bought that through Alexa by just asking for something. I can't remember what it was specifically. And although I was kind of just testing it, it was like, is this the one? Does that sound right? Yeah, that's all right. Do you want to buy it? It's like £4. Yeah, I'll buy it. Yeah. And before I knew where I was, it was literally like, it was seconds and it was over. I didn't even have a chance to think about it. So I can certainly see that there is huge opportunities, certainly with one-off purchases and stuff like that. And I certainly see that there's massive opportunities in there, isn't there?
There is a massive opportunity. I feel like the difference between what we're doing and what the big players are doing, right? We're doing true conversational AI, and with conversational AI, you're going to probably dig a little deeper into your searching behaviors before you actually go and buy things that whether you want or you don't want. You're going to be fairly certain on what you're purchasing, because when you do buy, dog antlers or something like that, right? It'll probably ask you what type of dog you have, what size, so it's some searching and some recommendation that's coming part of that to help you make justifiable purchases. But you're right. I mean, people will spend more with voice commerce. In fact, voice commerce is a $40+ billion business by 2022, because with the help of smart speakers, with the help of other smart devices, we're hoping to kind of land on those multiple smart devices to help people, really be comfortable and have a frictionless life, right? Imagine if you're sitting on your couch with your significant other and you're watching Netflix and you're saying, "Hey, Justin, can you pause Netflix?" And you say, "I would like to order from Domino's." It sounds really lazy, but it's stuff that helps us kind of get through in life to really enjoy life again, with the power of voice.
I wouldn't even pause Netflix. I would just I would just crack on while I was watching. But it's interesting you were saying there in terms of the size of the forecasted market, because I read something. It was a few weeks back now, and it was talking about how. I'll have to dig out the link and put it in the show notes, but it was talking essentially that the piece was about how underwhelming the voice commerce space is at the moment. And I think the figures that were in there were something like out of everybody who's tried shopping on a voice assistant, it was something low, like I think it was something like, I don't know, 10%, 13% or something. But then only 2% of that group ended up trying to shop again. So I'm interested in obviously you've been working in this space and it sounds as though things are going kind of pretty well. So I'm wondering what your thoughts are in terms of why do you think that might be, and what are some of the challenges that need to be overcome, or what challenges are Jetson overcoming currently that will improve on those kind of figures?
Yeah, I'll go back to the conversational AI element. The ability to search, recommend, and transact is kind of like our bread and butter. If you look at the competitors out there, and when I say competitors, we're by no means competing, but we're actually complementary to a Google Home and Alexa because we lay over it. But what we're trying to do is we're very focused on helping people understand what they're buying, understanding how that conversation breaks down so that we can actually very, very much focus on the user and the intent on what they're purchasing, and really focusing on kind of voice commerce and what you can do. The way we're thinking about it is that from a retail play, 95% of that buying behavior should happen with your voice. And when you do want to purchase a TV, you may go to a local retail store that is compatible with our Jetson technology to actually look at the TV and then make the purchase when you go home on your voice. And our voice product actually, again, works on multiple platforms. So let's say you don't have to go home and tell your wife to purchase the TV. You can actually speak on a different platform to buy as well, or on the go with your mobile device.
So it sounds as though, so one of the common things that's mentioned all the time is this concept of discoverability, isn't it? And things being difficult to discover on voice. From what you've been describing there and having Jetson in other places, it sounds as though the strategy might be to try and get Jetson as a default assistant in certain environments. Is that the idea, or if not, how do you see kind of discoverability in the voice commerce space playing out?
Well, we see discoverability as a lot different than the Google voice searches, because we have a concept of the Jetson marketplace. And when we created this marketplace, we didn't want to be just another marketplace. We wanted the ability to have products and services being sold by the brands in a much easier and conversational way. So going back to the onboarding piece, we work with brands to quickly generate that voice dialogue so that they quickly can really have a new channel of sales, right, with voice in a very quick manner. So we can do automatic dialogues in less than a day for a lot of these brands, but we because we work with them hand to end, it's usually a couple of days to make sure that their brand value is intact. That's really, I think, our strong point is the ability to offer, low risk, high rewards kind of platform to the brands. But for the consumers, they can actually, order on multiple platforms in a very quick way, a very discoverable way. And that's how we make our engine really strong, right? To onboard a lot of these marketers on our marketplace, and they can actually search anything, within our partners.
Okay, so Jetson essentially, aside from, I think you mentioned earlier on, potentially brands being able to white label the technology, but that aside, in terms of the main focus of building out Jetson essentially, from what you're saying, is going to be the front end and the entry point. And then once you're into the Jetson world, you then have access to the various brands that have signed up.
Yeah, I mean, if I were to put a name in how we compare, think of it like Jetson is the Shopify of voice commerce, where we enable people or brands to quickly spin up experiences so that they have an additional sales channel for voice.
Okay. So how do you, because I remember when we spoke to Joshua Montgomery of Mycroft it was one of the earlier podcasts actually, and he was saying that at some point in time, most retailers are going to end up competing with Amazon, because Amazon, I've seen some slides actually from a conference a few weeks back, and I forget the name of the chap who was presenting, but it was unbelievable. And he gave an example of, I'll have to dig it out and put it in the show notes again, but he gave an example of the size of Amazon as a company. And essentially, if you just imagine a circle on a slide, and inside that circle, which represents the size of Amazon, he put Walmart and Target and Adidas and all of these different brands that Amazon is bigger than and worth more than. And the kind of example he was given is in terms of other areas that Amazon is kind of trying to get itself into. So obviously we're now into hardware and with the smart speakers and microwaves and all this kind of stuff. There was also a theme in there around, at some point in time, Amazon are probably going to be competing with lots and lots of retailers. Do you see that being a challenge in terms of Jetson being available on every single platform? Is there a challenge as far as Amazon's concerned, or are you very much sort of thinking that Jetson is a complementary thing to Amazon?
Jetson is a complementary to the Google Homes and Alexa. We're very focused on the full end-to-end user experience and the journey on how people are searching, recommending, and potentially transacting on the go or in a specific retail store. My feeling is that the retail is going through a renaissance period where they're becoming more showrooms than purchase places or locations. So we're very focused on, working with different companies to understand what that end-to-end journey is like. We feel like at Jetson, we're working very hard in understanding and working with real estate, people in the retail space to really understand, to bring that kind of experience together, right? Going back to kind of the Shopify or other examples, Jetson is very good at stitching experiences together. And stitching experiences doesn't mean like we're putting a bunch of technology solutions together. We're actually putting a lot of physical and digital elements together because we really believe that the retail space is going to grow differently through the next 5-10 years. And, with hopefully, with our technology, we can help spearhead that.
How do you mean piecing things together? Do you mean piecing together like a physical retail store with an online experience, with a smart speaker experience? Is that kind of what you mean, or are you talking about something different there?
No, I'm talking exactly that. So let's say you're at home. You just come home and you're ordering something from Jetson. and then you want to transition that order to be completed on a different device, you can do so today. And let's say you complete that, let's say you're completing that transaction, but you don't want it to be delivered and you want it to pick up at a store because you need it now rather than, next day or 2-day delivery. You can actually go to one of these retail spaces in the near future to pick them up. Or let's say you're buying a big item purchase that's over $1,000, like a TV that you actually need to see. Or even a piece of clothing that you need to see before you buy, you can do so as well. There are certain elements as we're building this platform in the last 14 months of our existence, is that we're really thinking about what can we do with voice first, what can we do as voice first and screen second, but also what can we do with voice first and maybe retail as the kind of the end journey of where that purchase is being completed. But we're really focused on making that life more frictionless and more time consuming so that we can help people make really educated purchases, but also, having a really great experience while out there.
And I know that you joined the WhatsApp group, I think it's called Voice 2 now, the WhatsApp group. And there was a few, so you touched on, when you joined that, you mentioned some of the things that you'd just been mentioning there in terms of joining up those experiences. And I think one of the things you were saying is that, you could start an interaction on your phone and then continue it on the smart speaker, or you can start it on the app and then, or start on the smart speaker, continue it somewhere else. And some of the questions, so I think David Lowe asked one, and Pete Gatenby asked more or less the same question in terms of how do you go about stitching together those experiences? What mechanism are these kind of threaded together by?
Yeah, it's threaded by a Jetson account. So today, when you sign up for our application, you will have a Jetson account. Our feeling is that don't think of it as yet another account I have to sign up. Think of it as an account where you're going to use this to transact on multiple devices, and also enable you to have specific rewards and discounts when you visit a retail store of our partner list as well. And that's how we kind of stitch, those experiences together. Because we're really focused on bringing that holistic experience, and we feel like the only way we can showcase this is by creating our own account with a payment platform that allows it to have continuity between devices and all the way through the store as well.
Okay, so on that then, are you kind of, when somebody signs in on the app, are you kind of looking at what device they're using as well, or do you not care? Do you just see that someone signed in somewhere and they're using it?
Yeah, we're looking at, we have specific identifiers. So when people speak on different devices, it will pick up a specific identifier to understand that, Kane had, spoken on one device and now is transitioning to another. But to that point, a lot of the data that we're sharing, for the European followers of VUX world is like, we're very focused on GDPR as well. So a lot of that information is not being resold, or is actually, we anonymize a lot of that data as well. We just use specific unique identifiers to help pass through those kind of orders. We're not in the business of that, right? We're in the business of getting anonymized data to help smooth the kind of ordering experience.
Mm. And you mentioned just before that around payments. So are you using like a third-party payments sort of provider, or you developed your own payment engine? How do the actual payments work?
Yeah, so we have our own payment. It's, internally we call it Jetson Pay, right? But also from a brand perspective, to have that continuity or that advantage is we offer you to use the Jetson Pay, but we're also very flexible in the sense that if there are countries that don't want to use our payment system and don't want the continuity, it is flexible to hook into our API systems can hook up into different payment systems as well. So if you're in Asia and very structured and you have to use Alipay, well, we can hook into that as well.
And is that kind of independent of the device? So it doesn't matter whether or not you're on a Google Home or you're on the app or whatever. It doesn't really matter. Is it all still using the same sort of payments situation?
Yes. Yeah. So it's using the same payment.
Is there anything that you need to do differently with payments in voice compared to payments online or on a mobile? Yeah,
there is. Specifically with like screenless devices, right? How do I know that, Kane's not impersonating Jon Chu, right? Or vice versa, right? So we have a specific patent technology for voice ID identification to understand profiling, understanding how that profiling is matched to specific credit cards. So that's very different, right? But you can also say like, who's to say you're not going to knock me over while I'm typing on my laptop and you're going to click and order something on e-commerce, right? It's stuff like that we, obviously laugh and think about, but it is actually a real issue with voice because there's a lot of things that could be spoofed. There's a lot of things where, just like the days where your kid is ordering, in-app purchases with your apps, right? We're thinking of all different things on how things can go wrong in life with voice. And obviously we're not there. We can't solve everything, but we're certainly thinking a lot about voice identification and how that identification travels across different platforms.
Okay. So what do you think then that you mentioned there around spoofing and all that kind of stuff, and there's obviously risks. I mean, you could be at a bank machine trying to get cash out. Someone could be over your shoulder looking at your PIN number and then, pick your pocket and take your card off you. So there's never going to be a way necessarily of completely getting rid of absolutely every single possibility of things happening, I don't think. But what do you think some of the kind of challenges or solutions to those challenges are in terms of voice commerce from a technical perspective? How have we kind of solved it and we're happy with it, or where do you think it needs to sort of improve?
I think there's much more needed to be done in that space. There's a lot of like kind of things that people are, companies are doing that might not resonate with Jetson, so the ability to always listen at some point, that is a security concern of ours, specifically what we talked about, privacy. That's why we implemented kind of like a push to talk on the app so that we're not listening all the time. Again, we're not in that business of getting voice data in that way. And also for like your Google devices, right? There's that hard switch. So we're looking at different ways of improving your life through technology, but in a more opt-in privacy, setting, or the ability to kind of, different design ways to help curtail that kind of issue.
Mm. And then well, we'll go on to brands in a second, but what do you think the some of the things that so it sounds as though Jetson, from a conversational commerce perspective and the technology that you got behind the scenes and all that seems to be working, really well. And I admit I haven't actually tried it out and kind of experienced it myself, but it sounds all kind of really good. I mentioned earlier that the report that was talking about the low kind of voice commerce numbers. Do you think it's just a matter of time before people naturally hop on the voice commerce sort of not bandwagon, but the voice? Do you think it's a matter of time before people start using their voice more to shop, or do you think there's anything that can be done to try and make that behavior happen a bit quicker?
I would say education, the education of why voice is important and why voice is becoming the most natural interface, right? We went through kind of the typewriter, the keyboard, the mobile keyboards, and now voice is becoming a new interface. Is it going to be, in fact, that new interface for the next 5 to 10 years? I certainly believe so, but it's all about education, right? We've done a lot of talks and trade shows and conferences, and one of the kind of the number one thing that kind of sticks out through a lot of these conversations is people don't know where to ask or don't know where to kind of, where can they engage to learn more about voice UX. So I'm really happy that you have like kind of the VUX worlds and the voice to WhatsApp group. Like that to me is really positive in that space to help other people, whether it's people in our space, people in agencies, consumers, brands. I think we're all doing a fantastic job. And if we can all come together to educate a little bit more on why voice is so important, and voice really is, at least in our technology, conversational, 3 times faster. It's really the most natural thing that we can help people, focus in buying the right things at the right brands, understanding recommendations and when to actually purchase. That's super important. And I think with a lot of education and a lot of kind of focus groups and pushing to that right location, voice is really going to dominate a lot of the interactions, and on top of that, commerce as well in the next next couple of years, I would say.
And what would your advice be to brands and retailers who are, I think we're probably at a point now, certainly throughout this year and where we are now, I reckon that we're at a point where people know about it now, don't they? People know about kind of, certainly on the brand side, that they're aware of it, they're being kind of either considering it or kind of like, keeping an eye on it or whatever. What's your advice to brands who have something to sell? Could be retailers, could be, hotels or whatever. It could be food premises, but people. It's obviously a lot broader than that. But what would your advice be to brands who have got an ear on this space and who are kind of watching it and considering it?
I would say work with myself, cheap plug, or Jetson, but work with people in the space that we really talk about and work about every day. Like for us, like Jetson, it's more like every time we talk to a client, we're very close to understanding how can we help your business succeed with voice. Right, we're not here to just oversell our product. We're very focused on how can we sell your product so that it fits within your business. And for us to understand their business and for them to understand why voice can adapt to their business is huge. So I think that's kind of one of the positive things that we do. On top of our core technology is that we're pretty good at helping people understand why voice is becoming not only the primary interface, but also a big part of consumers' lives.
And what does the future look like for Jetson? What's the vision and what you're kind of hoping to sort of achieve over the next few years?
Yeah, so the next few years, going into 2019, really focus on the retail space. There's a couple of plays in the retail space, whether it's in workspace like a WeWork, retail space like a lot of the brands we're talking to, having the ability to really, as part of this conversation, is to have an end-to-end journey to make your life more frictionless. And that means, from a workspace perspective, the ability to book workspaces with your voice, maybe book it in an hour versus a day. Ability to order food because you're so busy creating a company, right? And you don't have time for lunch, and having that food delivered to you. The ability to kind of order on multiple devices, and also looking at a product in a retail space. So our vision in 2019 is pretty big. But as entrepreneurs, we have to aspire big, right? To do big, and it's more. What we really love in this space is talking to the number of people to kind of really educate, understand their businesses, and how we can use Jetson's technology to kind of, so to say, stitch everything together. Because, it's really that point that we're really going to do well in. And a couple of years later, we're really focused on not only the retail space, but also kind of the hospitality part of it as well. The ability to book hotel rooms, book concert tickets and stuff like that, which, one of our advisors, is in that space. So we're really focused on that as well. And while you might, for the listeners, you might think, wow, Jetson is doing a vast amount of things. There is a commonality between all these spaces: food, retail, and hospitality. It's all about purchasing. It's all about a call to action. And we believe that we do it very well in that contextual or conversational element. And it's all going to lead to some type of call to action, whether it's monetary or not.
I think what Jetson has, listening to you speak over the last 50 minutes or so, is it's got a product and that is being rolled out and that's working. I think there's a lot of talk about conversational commerce, a lot of talk about, I've been trying to coin the term vCommerce, which I think sounds pretty cool. A lot of talk about it, but not many examples of where it's actually happening. I think Jetson's one of the few examples, perhaps even aside from Amazon and Google, probably the only example that I've seen of something that's working and that's up and running and that is actually really seriously pursuing this. So, I mean, you're right that there is seemingly some similarities around all of those areas. And if you've got the technology that can deal with the complexities of customizing a burger or a pizza, then a hotel room is not too much dissimilar, really.
You're right. And it's, when we first started this journey, it's, we tackled the food industry, and then a lot of people kind of laughed and snickered and said, well, that's kind of easy to do. But, when you actually try to order food with your voice, or at least developing it, it was actually quite hard, right? Because understanding people's preferences and the way they order coffee, like Kane's ordering coffee different than Jon, right? Or the way they order burger, it's actually quite involved. But we're at this point in our life where our core technology and our automation is actually there for brands to actually create these experiences in a matter of hours.
Wicked. Well, Jon, I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much for joining us. Where can people, brands, reach out to you, and where can people kind of follow the Jetson journey?
Yeah, you can follow us at Jetson.ai on the Twitter and also Instagram. And if you wanted to contact me for a demo, my email address is Jon@Jetson.ai. We'll be happy to walk you through a demo and to see how we can help you in this journey. We'd love to partner with you.
Fantastic. Jon, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you for having me, Kane.
That was Jon Chu of Jetson. Does seem to be quite a compelling story, that, from what Jon was saying. Some of the conversational commerce, or vCommerce, as I'm still persistent on trying to coin, some of the kind of vCommerce stories you hear in the report I mentioned, and some of the kind of talk about it, the reality seems to be that not that many people are doing it. The hype tends to be that it is really kind of spoke about quite a lot, and it's the future and all that kind of stuff. But in terms of the bit in the middle of the practicalities of who's actually doing it, as I said at the end there's not a great deal on the market that's actually doing the whole end-to-end journey. Plenty of companies are in there trying to help you out with the searching for products, and Amazon are doing a good job at trying to make it happen on the Echo. But Jetson seems to be quite a compelling platform that seems to be filling a decent need. It'll be interesting to see how it pans out in terms of whether it is competing with Amazon or not. I don't know whether it is or not, to be honest. It's an interesting area to get into. But they've got a state not just on smart speakers, but on phones and things like that. And they're looking at doing in-store experiences as well as trying to join up all the other devices. So I think that the vision is certainly a sound vision. I think that Jon's certainly switched on in terms of where he sees the future of vCommerce, and what they're doing and the vision that they're trying to pursue is absolutely admirable. So best of luck to Jetson. Thank you, Jon, for joining us on the podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you all for listening as always, and I'll see you next time. See you later.